it's a little bit nerve-wracking, Jambo, to talk about totems and spirituality. We've already spoken about ntupo yedu maererano nekuzvikudza, kuchengetedza dzinza, kuchengetedza mhuka dzedu, nekuzvikudza. Zvinongonakirwa kuda mwana mutupo. But this aspect is one that we seldom get a full picture about when we are talking all things to do with who we are. And that is totems and spirituality. So we were asking the listener before we went live, totems and spirituality. In your mind, what does that even mean? What does that do for you? Do you think somehow our totems themselves can actually connect on a spiritual level to something? Do you think our totems can link us with divinity? And that's some of the questions we want to answer for you this morning. And I want to know if you had any experiences. 3498 being called by a totem is a matter of the dead and the alive being called at the same time, and they all pay attention. I love that, and it's quite true, isn't that? Cosmas Yamoto does come through every single Thursday. He is the one that helps us have these discussions because he spends a lot of time passionately asking questions, researching, meeting the gatekeepers of our culture and our heritage across the different totems, tribes, and even the history of our country. And a lot of times challenges certain narratives. And it's so fascinating, one narrative that you are also helping us challenge, Chiwambu. There's no such thing. That makes absolutely no history. And there's so many things that we have accepted, a distortion of who we are, and we have allowed, even for ourselves, to perpetuate that history, because sometimes also we don't have enough narratives coming us and showing us an alternative, where we as a proud black man takes a hold of our narratives and our stories to reinvestigate them and say, actually, but you are one of those people that likes to challenge certain narratives that have been sometimes even beautifully packaged about who we are. And you beautifully challenge some of the things. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Manjenjenje. It is a pity, really, that we have absorbed, we've accepted some of the narratives about our leaders. These were narratives that were given by the colonial masters, and they were never meant to show how great we are as a people, how organized we are as a people. It was a narrative that intended to give the picture of a black man as somebody without a brain. King Lobengula was a king. He was not just a leader. He was a king. And King Lobengula, his time, sugar had been around for 200 years. And you can't put a narrative that says akatengesa nyika for a teaspoon of sugar. Vaingoda kutituka. King Lobengula was a very good leader. He was a very good fighter. He had his team of fighters, and they defeated the whites. They did not like the aspect that he defeated the whites, who were better equipped militarily, and he killed them, all 23, including Major Alan Wilson. And when that happened, that is when they decided to spoil his name by giving such a dirty narrative, the narrative that he sold his country for the love of a teaspoon of sugar.
So I'm so excited today about totems and spirituality, how we continue to challenge narratives, as you've said, that have been given to us to reduce the black man, to show us as inhumane as possible, undignified, barbaric, uneducated, unsophisticated. Paganistic is also another word that is largely used and associated with us as Ubuntu, as black people. And here you are today. We want to talk about totems and spirituality. Now, my first question that I want to throw at you, and by the way, we're also live on our Facebook page, so you can also engage with us. I'll also be checking in to see, what your thoughts are. So when it comes to spirituality, from an Ubuntu perspective, I think that's something that has been largely distorted. Because for most of us, I think spirituality largely looks like seeing angels flying, speaking in tongues, healing, that sort of spirituality. And then when we think about it in terms of Ubuntu, a black man points of view, you're possibly picturing someone that has a black feather hat, somebody wearing hides, and in a dark heart with black, red, and white cloth as what we see as spirituality. We seldom allow ourselves to process spirituality from an Ubuntu point of view as something equally angelic and powerful. For you, when you use the word spirituality, how does it translate? How do you interpret that from Ubuntu?
Very unfortunately, tema, we do not understand spirituality. Chivanu, we don't understand Chivanu. We only understand it from the eyes of the white man, of the colonizer. Chivanu is comparable to religion. It is comparable to Christianity. Chivanu chedu is a way of life. Spirituality is a way of life. Just as much as Christianity is a way of life, religions are ways of life. When we look at spirituality, Chivanu chedu, unfortunately, it was so messed up by our colonizers. It was a beautiful establishment that we had, which the colonizers decided to destroy. Vakawaya ne religion yao into this country, and ne religion yao, they hammered it into our heads so hard that we even forgot about our spirituality. Religion was being taught Kuma schools. You'd go up, even before you start grade 1, you would be doing religion all the way. You'd be doing Christianity all the way. Kusuka kuma universities, warakuita ma degrees religion, warakuita ma doctorates religion. Spirituality does not fit anywhere in the education system. It has never been there. Now, this is why we do not understand this subject of spirituality. But for today, what I'm going to do is just run through a spirituality so that we get a basic understanding of it.
Yeah. So on one of our shows, which we call Zinder Roots, which happens Fridays, we've got an Africologist. He calls himself an Africologist. He studied and absorbs, lives, eats, and dreams all things to do with our African development and research and understanding who we are. And he said something that changed the way I understood myself. He said, there's no such thing as African traditional religion. No. Those are terms and ideas that came in with the exact same package you're talking about, which is colonialism. Because for us, Pachivanu, spirituality is part of who we are. It's not separate. It's not a religion. Part of practicing Ubuntu is awareness of that spirituality. So my question to you would be, do you agree with that? That the moment we are talking to ourselves as saying the African traditional religion, because there is no such thing.
We don't, spirituality and religion are two worlds apart. It is not the same thing. When you talk religion, the rules that go with religion are not the same as the rules that go with spirituality. They've got a book in religion, a book they refer to, a book with all the laws of the ways you need to run your life. We don't have a book in spirituality. Spirituality is basically the laws of nature. That's what we work with when we talk spirituality.
Right.
But again, let me just go a step back. When we talk of Chivanu, the word has been so stained, it doesn't look clean anymore. because we think of the Zimbabwean environment and the way chivanhu chedu was destroyed nevarungu vachichi replacer ne-religion. But tine chivanhu muZimbabwe muno, hatisi tega tine chivanhu. KuZambia vane chivanhu chavo chakasiyana nechedu. Libya vane chivanhu. Nigeria, any country. Go to Portugal, vane chivanhu chavo. Go to UK, vane chivanhu chavo. Takaona pakagadzwa King Charles. We watched that. Vakanga vachiita chivanhu chavo.
Right.
Izwere kuti chivanhu is such a clean term. We don't want to believe kuti, to be told by anyone kuti chivanhu kana kuti spirituality is bad. It is not. It exists in every country of the world. It exists among all the people of the world. I'll give you one example. I attended last week, it was on Friday, I attended a discussion by a lady from Poland. She's Clara Anna Rosa. Anoita zvechivanhu. Iye ari muPolish. Asi anoita zvechivanhu. And anototi she's a spirit medium in this country. And tichimubvunza kuti spirit yako ndeipi, ndeyekuPoland here kana kuti ndeyemuno? Spirit yake ndeyemuno. And she operates in a spirit iyoyo. Now, she was explaining to us during the discussion at UZ. She was saying that, yes, tine chivanhu chedu kuPoland. Give us an example. So that's right. Well, what we do is, tine a ceremony atinoita in a family setup. Just the family. Kana tiri 5 mumba, tinobika chikafu chinokwana vanhu 6. 5 varimo vanopiwa ndiro dzavo dzekudya. Iyi ndiro yechi6 isina munhu iyi. Hanzi inoiswa mumba nechepakona. Yosiwa iri ipapo. Inonzi chikafu chema ancestors. Chikafu chevadzimu. They do that in Poland. Yeah. I found it to be very interesting. Because isu kwedu kumusha ekudzinde rekwanyamudzwa epaTriZero mission kuRusape. Paya panobikwa doro rekunaisa mvura. Hari yakazara doro inotorwa yoendeswa paguva of our ancestor, our greatest ancestor, rekwanyamudzwa. Ndo panoiswa doro ipapo. Vanoisa manheru. And then mangwana kuseni, the elders go back kuhari iya, vanoitora hari inenge yawe empty.
Nema.
This happens today. This happens today. And do you see, this compares now with what we see with the Polish people.
Udawabika unodzokera unonondevera hari yake.
Agoinwa agoipedza.
Agoipedza.
Vadzimu ndo vanopedza.
Agodhakwa here kwavanenge vari ikoko.
Oh yeah, then they stagger back into their grave. Vanenge vaguta doro. So this is happening in Zimbabwe. And what I saw from the discussion last week on Friday, it is also happening in Poland. When you move from Poland, you go to Germany. Vane chivanhu chavo muGermany. You go to any other country of the world, vane chivanhu chavo.
Right.
Saka, when we say chivanhu kana kuti spirituality, it is a very clean term. Let's not follow zvaitaurwa nemacolonizers edu kuti chivanhu chedu chakaipa. Isu ndisu vacho vanhu vatema. We need to stand and defend chivanhu chedu.
Wow, it's wow. Okay, this is very interesting. I wanted to ask for clarity point. Kana tichiti spirituality ichichirunguka ichi. Kana tichida kuzozvisa muchikaranga, not necessarily in terms of direct translation, but in terms of the understanding and perspective of what that is. Not ukaenda kuna mbuya uchivati mbuya muri spiritual here. It can be somewhat lost in translation into what we are trying to talk about today. What is the African understanding of spirituality?
Spirituality, like religion, is a way of life. Christianity is a way of life. Judaism is a way of life. Spirituality is a way of life. Ndo chatiri kuti chivanu. So when we say chivanu chedu, we'll be talking about African spirituality. So this is perhaps the way we need to understand it.
Right, because we've highlighted this already in this show, and I think the more you dig deeper into understanding, our Africanism and Ubuntu, is that it's one and the same thing. Our spirituality is not devoid from who we are as Ubuntu. It's in there. That's why it becomes Chivanu, because it's not a separate experience from how we live. It's exactly who we are.
It's exactly who we are. We need to be proud of being black. We need to be proud of being Africans. We need to be proud. Nema practices edu sevano vatema. We need to be very proud of that. This is what identifies us on this earth.
Yeah.
As Africans.
Okay. So how do we connect now our totems with spirituality? Mutupo nechivanu chedu. Tinoziva kuti kazhinji tinotaura maererano nekukudzwa kwemunhu, kwekuziva dzinza, kwekuchengetedza mhuka nemiti nei. But how do we connect this now to what we're talking about today, which is also a part of divinity and the divine?
We have talked about Mitupo for a long time now, and we saw how Mitupo are linked to our ancestors. Mutupo watinawo nhasi. Ausiri wandakaenda kuno mtown ndichini kutsvaka mutupo ndotenga mutupo ndoti ndewangu. Mutupo watinawo, we inherited it from our ancestors.
Right.
Just in the same way as we inherited their blood. The blood in our veins today, rekubva kuma ancestors edu. The life yatinayo nhasi iri kubva kuma ancestors edu. And it is important. Our DNA iri kubva kuma ancestors. And we even carry their names, some of us. When you call me Cosmas, I use two first names. Cosmas was my father's name. My second name is Innocent, and Innocent was my sekuru.
Right.
This is how important we consider our ancestors to be. Now, it is the same with spirituality.
Right.
Tinoitora kubva kuma ancestors edu tichiuya kusvika patiri. And spirituality yedu tichangoita pass on, just like totems. We'll just pass it on to our children. Vana vedu vachangoita pass on as well to their children. And this is the way that it is. Spirituality and totems, there is a beautiful similarity. There's so much in common.
Yeah. So I'm going to play something that I stumbled upon, talking about how our totems link us to our divinity. I thought it was absolutely staggeringly interesting. It's actually from a conversation that was happening by Afro Savvy, and it's actually titled Totems in African Spirituality. And I found it's a long conversation. I just went in and picked in a couple of thoughts that I thought would be interesting for our discussion this morning. And I also want you to listen in and let me know what you think about this perspective and this way of seeing life. It's Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. We're talking about totems and spirituality. Do you think our totems connect us somehow to the divine? And if you think so or don't think so, I'm curious to hear from you why you would say that. Just take a listen to this interesting take on totems linking us with the divine.
Us as humans and the way we see the animals as totems. Totemism within then modern times, because it's very important to not remain in a static sort of space where we'll reminisce about the time of Gwalanga and those great empires. But animal totemism still exists within all of our lineages. We look at it from Mazulu and the Nguni people. You have people that are Barangwenye, and the totem is a crocodile. And within that crocodile, they understand that if they go to a certain particular place in a river and they see a crocodile, it's not an aggressor, but it's actually a manifestation of the divine. It's a message from the source, the creator. It's a message also from their ancestors, passed through their ancestor, which is the crocodile. In the same way as in your Xhosa people that believe in Umajola. Umajola is a snake. When it is understood in Umajola that they'll speak and narrate that in a lot of the experiences when a new child was born, they'll walk in and find the child, and the snake Umajola will be there, and they will not threaten or harm the child. So that animal totemism also translates into how people then deal and interact with it. You see it also in your Sotho people, your northern Sotho people, which is many tribes, from your Lobedus to your Mapulana to your Bedi people to your Bakhatla. You know, there's quite a large group of northern Sotho people and your southern people, Sotho people, that come then from what would be then Lesotho, and your western Sotho speakers, which would be your Tswana people.
All right, so that's the voice of Gogo Kanyakude, and he is unpacking really his understanding of totemism and how it looks into our African perspective. But I found that interesting, that for most of us, Chiwambu, we don't consider the animal, which is the symbol of our totem, as something that can connect us to the divine. I can't ever imagine a zebra, the animal in itself, somewhat connecting me to something more divine. Like I can't process that quite beyond what we've been told, that, you know, there's only one way to God, there's only one access channel, and that's, you know, you have to be Christian, you have to be this way. But this perspective is scary to think about it, that this, I want to hear your thoughts and your reactions to that thinking. And what's also very interesting is South Africans, or certain parts of you were talking earlier, Zambia, there are certain parts of our brothers and sisters across the continent who seem to be more in tune, more connected to our roots, our thinking, our indigenous system. And he actually talks about Zimbabwe a little bit later, about Great Zimbabwe, in this conversation that we have, but because of time, we're not going to go there. But I found all these thoughts very mind-boggling. The animal and the divine connection, beyond just saying, it's Zinzarokwenyu.
Yes. You see, the white men did not bring anything new to us. We had our spirituality. In the Christian world, God is the ultimate. Mm-hmm. With spirituality, God is also the ultimate. Mm-hmm. The only new thing that the white men brought us was Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. But with us now in spirituality, we do not use Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. We use our ancestors. Mm-hmm. These are the people that help us to connect to God.
Right.
My ancestor, like I said earlier, he's got my blood. Mm-hmm. He had my cells. Mm-hmm. In fact, they bequeathed to me their cells, their blood. They their totem everything. They understand me so well. They know precisely who I am. They speak to God on my behalf.
And also, I think from an Ubuntu point of view, we have no consciousness that we are an inadequate, flawed species. I think our reference to God is accepting that everything that he has made, including us, is perfect. Christianity gives us the opposite, that we are perpetually flawed, that we can only be proper human beings because of Jesus. And our Ubuntu does not see ourselves in that way. We don't see ourselves as needing salvation.
No, not really. You know, it's really the natures, the laws of nature. When you look at Christianity, it talks about heaven and hell. When you talk about hell, to me it sounds very threatening. We don't have
Scary
any
place.
we don't have any such feature in spirituality.
Right.
When I die, I simply join my ancestors. Full stop. And then I'm going to be an ancestor for those to be born, for those after me. This is how it goes. But when you talk about if you steal, you go to hell. Now life becomes very uncomfortable. There's somebody you did business with, and you were too clever for them. You made serious money out of them.
Right.
You've got this perpetual feeling that you are going to hell. No, we don't have that in spirituality. Spirituality is a way of life that is a lot more smooth than Christianity. It's a way of life that does not spill blood. Look at how many wars have been caused by religion. From 1517, for 200 years from there, 10 million Christians were killed by other Christians. We don't have any such record among in African spirituality.
Right.
Spirituality does not encourage fighting at all. No, we don't fight.
Yeah. All right. So there are a couple of questions that have come in there. Perhaps we can use them also to answer some of the questions. Batanya mamukase kanzi ndibvunziroje vachivambo kuti kuvadzimu nevaroyi havadziyani here. Why ndadaro is that varoyi, for them to gain entrance into someone's house, spirituality vanokumbira through vadzimu vachidetembera, and vadzimu will allow varoyi to commit evil on people after such incantations, he said. I'm not sure if it's a word. I've never heard that before.
What the listener is saying is that he is trying to show how bad spirituality is. I've just talked about 10 million Europeans being killed over Christianity. We don't have such staggering numbers in African spirituality. Yes, they talk about the bad things that spirituality can do. But when you do that, you must also talk about the bad things that Christianity does.
Right. Because when we talk mainly of our Ubuntu and spirituality, it's always almost synonymous with Varoi, Nanga, and things like that. We very seldom can we appreciate the goodness that can come out of our spirituality.
Yes, like I said earlier, takadzidziswa Christianity kubvira tiri vana vadiki kusvika taita madoctorates. That's how much we understand it. We understand very little about spirituality. And if anything at all, it is what we are hearing, where information that was given to us about our own spirituality, Varungu. Varungu never meant to build my practices evanu atema. It was only the bad things that they would highlight. How about the good things about spirituality?
Yeah.
They were never highlighted.
Right.
And this is what we need to be doing now.
Yeah.
We need to be talking about spirituality. The white man is not going to come back to tell us the good things about spirituality. Yeah. It's us to develop that thinking, yes, spirituality.
Yeah. And as you were talking there, I just had a thought in my mind how also a part of Christianity at that time, as they were replacing what we understood with Christianity, was, because we always need a savior, the only way to life is through God. How do I explain it? A perpetual sense of begging and looking for someone to come and save us. I don't know how to explain it. And yet, when you look at the white man now, he's completely moved away from religion. Most of these developed countries have moved away from the idea of needing somebody to save them. They're questioning that within themselves. Shikaye na PX, this is just your opinion, brother. Hell is there. And this is the thing, most of us are afraid of that reality. That we die and then we realize that hell is real.
Mbuya vangu ini vainzi vaive nezita rechimanyika vainzi kudopa wani. That means kwakabva ani, and that was short for kwakabva ani kudenga kwamunongoramba muchitaura, kwakabva ani kuhell kwamuri kutaura. Christianity is a belief, and spirituality is a belief. These are mythical. Both spirituality and religion are in fact superstitions. We may not want to accept that, but that's reality. By definition, religions are superstition. We cannot really dig deep into them because, look, we don't understand superstitions. What is Isusevano Vatema, Chatinoziva, which is part of us, it is part of our DNA, it is spirituality.
So Nick comes through and he says, is it not the same narrative which he seems to be proud of, that our ancestors tried to move mountains from Rungwe to Mrewa or from Sape to Mrewa? Akusi kutituka irekoko, vanu vane brain, vangafunga kuvaka gomo, gomo rino basa mwezi here.
Yeah, but that is when you look at it from the negative side of things. When you look at it from the positive side of things, vaida kuti vatore gomo retikwiri riri kurusape, vaise pamsoro pezhombwe iri kwamrewa. Kana gomo ragara pamsoro, kana tikwiri yagara pamsoro pezhombwe, they were now going to be able to reach the moon. That was their thinking. Guess what? Hundreds of years later, the Americans and the Russians did the same, and they managed to get to the moon. But the idea was originally ours. So this is when you look at it from the positive side of things.
So what, from your understanding, what is Nick questioning here? He's questioning the idea of being able to move mountains?
Yes, it means they were actually thinking about getting to the moon. They were thinking about it.
Yeah. This is where it gets complicated. Sorry to interject there. What Nick is saying, because we as Christians are more readily accepting to the fact that a bush talked in the Bible. We hear, for example, the burning bush, a bush talking. We don't accept, you know what I mean? Why is it harder for us to accept these things from an African story more than it is from a Jewish story, that there was a burning bush, there was a man who built an ark, 2 by 2, achigara nadzo? Why is it easy to accept that there was a virgin that gave birth? Mose because it's unfathomable. But because it's a Jewish narrative, it makes more sense. When you hear it from an African perspective, it's rubbish, it's ridiculous.
This is the unfortunate part. You see, this experience of the Jewish, of the bush talking. We know about Njelele. Njelele was talking to us, was talking to our people. I want to give a perfect example of Cecil John Rhodes. He loved Inyanga. He went to Inyanga virtually all the time, although he was based in Cape Town. When he got to Inyanga, he found there was a family yekwanyangani muri iyoyo was talking to Mount Nyangani, the highest peak in the country. That family would talk to the mountain, and the mountain would talk to the people. Cecil John Rhodes achizviona, that was African spirituality. He didn't like it. What did he do? He moved the Nyangani family from where they were and sent them to Wedza. That's where they are today. That was destroying African spirituality. He did not stop there. In his will, he wrote kuti ndikafandoda kuyigwa paningi kumatopos. But what is matopos? But what is matopos? Matopos is the center of African spirituality. Cecil John Rhodes akatituka kuinyanga. Ouyazve wotituka zvakare kumatopos. This is reality of the white men trying to destroy African spirituality.
Yeah.
And here, zvino, kunyangani, we know of many people who have disappeared. Mugomoria.
Na vamwe vasina mabvi vakaendako nenharo
vakashaikwa. And there is nobody here zvino who can talk to the mountain because muri yaitaura negomo iroro yakabiswa.
You know, when you put that into perspective, this issue of trying to move a mountain, and then you talk about Mount Inyangani, it changes actually because I was fungisa, I was like, okay, what's really going on here? I'm curious, for example, I would love you to actually try that. Why aren't we daredevils going in groups and hordes of people going to Mount Inyangani? Say, and we try to challenge it, and none of us are brave enough to do that because there's a part of us, I think, that knows. Second Krembon, how are you? You came through and he said, oh, okay, let me read this one first. That says, superstition and spirituality are two different aspects of life. Superstition is born out of ignorance, vain imagination, and moments of cluelessness. Spirituality is born of human thinking, deep thinking, contemplation. It's only unfortunate that it is 11. We've got to go to the news. But next week, we need to continue this. I wanted to bring in another aspect of this, rainmaking. Tinotoza kuti kune mutupo vaizikanwa nenyaya iyoyi yekugona kudana mvura kuti inaye. It is something that's in there, and it's part of the spirituality, and I think in our totems. True. We will take this up again next week on Capital 100.4 FM. Harare Zabi. For now, it's 11 o'clock. So how are you thinking about your totem, your animal, and the divine?